Okay.
All right.
Representative Joseph is in the waiting room. Okay.
Okay. You know, let them in, or you want me to?
Hold on. Okay, we're live. Go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gilbert Crispin. I am a board member with Avancé Ensemble, who is really happy to be here this evening to present to you with a legislative wrap-up. We have some really cool guests. Just to tell you a little bit about Avancé Ensemble, we're a movement for Haitian Americans to preserve Haitian culture. And that's a really simple way of saying we're a really cool-ass organization that brings together a lot of great Haitians in our community to talk, to dialogue, to discuss problems, to find solutions, and to help build economic and political power. You've probably seen us on video before. You might have even been to some of our events. There's always more interesting things that we're looking to do, so please get in touch with us. I want to talk to you about another fascinating Haitian young person that we have the pleasure of having in our corner today, and he's really more like family than anything else. So I'm happy to present David Metellus, and that's my baby in the background. So please, apologies for any sounds. He's talking lately, but for David, he was born and raised in Florida, attended Howard University, and is a graduate of Florida International University with a bachelor's degree in international relations. David's work and experiences range across local, federal, and international government agencies such as the U.S. Senate, the U.S. House of Representatives, the Department of Labor, IAEA, Miami-Dade County. He has also worked as a volunteer doing after school math and English tutor in the southwest portion of Washington, D.C. Most recently, David has been working on campaigns across Florida, fighting to elect young progressive candidates of color to office. He is currently president at a South Florida consulting firm where he manages numerous campaigns, voter registration efforts, and ballot initiatives. And before I hand it off to him, I would advise candidates out there looking for somebody who's honest, thoughtful, and going to give you the truth and really help propel you to new heights should definitely reach out to David. He's a super approachable guy. He's not free, so don't think you're about to sit down with him and he's just going to give you all of the gems for free. But he's a fantastic guy, and we're really happy to have him here. So David, please take it away. I'll sign off, and please don't forget to engage with Avancé Ensemble on social media. Follow us, like, share, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Gil, for the generous introduction. I appreciate everything that you do for Avancé Ensemble and the organization. Good evening, everybody who's watching on Facebook Live. I'd like to say good evening to my two guests. We have Representative Marie Woodson and Representative Doti Joseph here with us, two phenomenal members who have been fighting very hard, Doti, since before this session, and Representative Woodson, I'm starting this session. And so what we're going to be doing this evening is sort of getting a legislative wrap up, getting a sense of what session was like for these two members, and see if we can glean some information specifically that we can share with our brothers and sisters in the Haitian community. So I'll open it up to our two members. We'll start with Representative Woodson, then we'll go to Representative Joseph. I guess my first question, of course, introduce yourselves, and then sort of give us an overview of this past legislative session. What happened from your perspective, and what were some of your priorities that passed and you think people should be keeping an eye on going forward?
Good evening, all the viewers. Good evening, David. Good evening, Centra. Actually, my colleague, Representative Doti Joseph, and as well as George, right, Crispin? It's a pleasure for me to be here with all of you this afternoon to really give you an update of what transpired in Tallahassee. My name is Marie Woodson, and I proudly represent District 101, which is part of Hollywood, Pembroke Pines, Miramar, Hallandale, West Park, and Pembroke Park. As you know, I was elected in the state legislature this past year, so I went to Tallahassee as a freshman. Freshman in the sense that I'm not new to government, but I was new to the state legislature because I had a career in county government. I was blessed to start in county government at a very young age when I was 21. And I decided to take a leap of faith and to run for state office and go to Tallahassee and continue my public service work in order to benefit the residents of the state of Florida. As you know, Tallahassee is a different territory. It's a different game in Tallahassee. It's not like county government where you go and certain things, you expect them to be a certain way. This was really an eye opener when you see how things work in Tallahassee. First of all, I was fortunate to stand really on the shoulders of so many who were there before me in Tallahassee. And I have to say that was a blessing. I can also talk about Representative Joseph. I can talk about State Senator Chevron Jones. I can talk about my other colleagues who were freshmen like me, who really set the tone at the beginning for us to really learn and see what the process was all about. It has not been easy. Believe me, when you hear someone go to Tallahassee, just like me as a freshman, and I would talk about the bills that I was able to pass, 3 of my bills passed, David. When you hear that, it's not a picnic. You have to work very hard. But I would go on the bills later. Let me talk about, first of all, the process itself. It's 42 of us as Democrats and 78 Republicans. So if you do the math, we do not have the numbers right then and there. But guess what? You have to learn how to work with people, not compromising your values or what the people who elected us to do. That's one thing from day one. I went up there not to compromising my values or what I want for my constituents or for the people of the state of Florida, what they want as well, not just what I want, but what they want as well. But you have to learn how to find ways to work with others in Tallahassee in order for you to get certain things up. We don't have the numbers, and that's something that I keep saying from day one, that we really need to work on that. We need more representation. No besoin plus représentation, surtout pour Haïtiens. I'm going to throw my Creole in there, David, at one time or the other. But starting with the budget this year, the state of Florida has really I've seen the largest budget in its history. The budget was about $101.5 billion. Mind you, as Democrats, we were told that any bills that we had that had fiscal impact would not see the light, which means they would not even hear them out because there's no money. However, the budget was the biggest one in the state of Florida. And I have to send a big shout out to the Biden administration. I have to say that President Biden came through because 10 billions of that budget, of that $101.5 billion, came from the American Rescue Plan, which is the federal government. If it wasn't for that money, we would have seen a lot more cuts, actually, in our programs, in our daily lives, in certain things that we really need for daily survival. So the budget was pretty large, and a lot of the money actually were allocated, like a big chunk of the budget was allocated to the environment, which is good because we know we trying not to leave problems for the next generation. But 750 million of that budget was allocated for school repairs, for the school, colleges, universities, and also there was some money, there was a bonus that were given to like firefighters, police officers, and so forth and so, but it was a $1,000 bonus. I'm just giving you a raw details of the rundown of the money. And also the state employees, because of the president of the Senate, they were able to get a 3% off. As usual, the Sardasky Fund that is allocated for affordable housing that was supposed to have 432 million, approximately about 423. So they only got 239.5. So every year we keep taking money from the Sardasky Fund while we know affordable housing is a major problem. So there was really this budget was, and some of the money that from the $10 billion that came from the American Rescue Plan, $6.6 billion of it was put in reserve in the state of Florida. Now, you know, we have COVID. You know, our community needs a lot more than that. Unfortunately, we didn't see a lot of it come into some of our programs that we needed to have. But David, one thing that I have to say, we learn a lot. I learned a lot as a freshman, and a lot of people who've been there before me, they saying the same thing. They saying it's a learning process for them every year. They learning. So I did not feel bad over the fact that we did not get as much as we expected, but I still got some of my bill passed, as well as bringing some money down to the community. Now, the reason that I'm not too quick at putting the appropriation money that I got is because they still on the desk of the governors, and you don't know what's going to be vetoed, what's not going to be vetoed. So exactly, you know it. That pen is right there, you know, getting ready for it. But one thing that I have to mention besides the budget, it was a lot of bad bills. And when I mean bad bills, I mean it to the core. And you know, some of those bills were really put on the table in order to hurt our Black and brown communities. For example, we're talking about SB 1. This is, we all were talking about, we never seen anything like that. Our right to protest, a lot of the things, a lot of the freedom that we are enjoying in this United States of America come from the protests that other people who have been before us, they have protested for certain things, and they have gotten some of those privileges that we all are enjoying. And I'm from Haiti, you know it, Haitian, born and raised in Haiti. And I came here enjoying some of those freedoms, some of the privileges that others have paved the way for me to be there. So now they're trying to take this away from us. Not they trying, actually the bill was passed. Because again, we do not have the numbers. So people have gotten to where they are because of protests. Now, a good example I would tell you in that bill, if you are in a protest and somebody act up, they got arrested, so everybody else who are protesting would get in trouble. As well, if someone decided they're upset because we're blocking the street or whatever the case might have been, they run into the crowd with the cars and hurt so many people, guess what? They are protected. There's nothing you can do. You cannot sue them. You cannot do anything. So just think of a bill like that. They had so many bad bills, and this is just one of the ones. This bill was really designed to hurt the Black and brown community. However you look at it, that's what it is. You have the election bill, actually, Senate Bill 90, which is also a bill. First of all, the leadership, we're talking about how Florida had the best elections. Nothing went wrong with the elections. Everything was fine. And then next thing we know, we are faced with a bill, you know, to address the issues that we had in our elections. This is how they put it. Now, do we believe that? No. Black and brown people came out in numbers during these elections. Look at what Stacey Abrams was able to do in Georgia. Look at what we also did. We came out in numbers. Of course, you know, they're going to try to hold us down for us not to be able to come out of numbers so they could retain the majority. This is how it is. So this election bill has so many flaws, so many bad things in there that's really hindering our ability to go out and cast our vote. Before, you used to be able to help, for example, seniors. They used to request a vote by mail ballot for the next 3 or 4 elections. Now you have to request those mail-in ballots every election cycle. Now, you know our seniors, they are not even seniors, people in general, you forget, or you know that you have requested those ballots, then you don't have to worry about anything. They're making it harder now for people to cast their vote. The mailboxes that you have to drop, that used to drop your ballots, now they are restricting those hours that they will be available to people. Not only that, you cannot say, okay, I'm going to help Miss Sue Lane or Miss so-and-so, because people used to be able to help seniors, like getting their ballots and be able to take them to the election to the vote by mail boxes or even drop them at the elections department. Guess what? Now you can only take 2 unless if you're all from the same family members. Even the hours, they are restricting those hours. Those vote by mail boxes, they have to be manned at all times. And if an election supervisor does not follow these rules, they would be charged $25,000. So what are we getting to? We had a bill on transgender kids actually, who supposed to be playing sports with their peers, high schoolers. They are trying to deny those kids the right to play. Now, my question to them, let's just say if it was your own kids who was a transgender, would you want them to be put away, put aside, or not being able to participate in the game? How would you feel if it was your own kids? If it was your daughter, your son, would you want them to be treated differently? This bill only would, they come up with those bills to marginalize the kids even more. And those kids are the ones who get ridiculed, who get bullied, or who are the kids really picked on because of who they are. So what are we getting to in the state of Florida? Believe me, David, this has been really a session that we all feel like this is not the United States of America. I said it on the desk that I'm from Haiti. I left Haiti because of a dictator. Okay, I couldn't get into a university because I didn't have any family members working for the government. Now I'm coming to this beautiful United States of America where you think there's so much freedom, and now we come in with those bills to really hurt people, to really hurt our kids, to really hurt everybody else, our seniors. So it was a session that we all will always remember for generations to come. But in spite of all that, I was able to pass 3 bills that I would talk about later. I know I've been talking and talking and talking, and I saw Rep. Joseph is cutely waiting for you to ask her some questions. So I would stop right then and I would talk about those bills that I was able to pass, even though we had a session that we don't even want to talk about sometimes.
Well, Rep Woodson, thank you. You hit most of my questions. So thank you for giving us a rundown. Rep Joseph, same question to you. Introduce yourself and I can repeat the question. Give us a rundown on your session from your perspective. What were your priorities, and how many of them were they successful? And is there anything that we should keep an eye out in the future legislatively?
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me. Shout out to my colleague. This is her first rodeo, and it was rough, right? Like there's no way to like prepare somebody for session. You really just kind of have to live through it, because no matter what you think, it's just, and there's full of surprises. Things that you didn't think would happen. Things that you thought would happen didn't happen. So it's a very mixed bag. So I'll start off with the introduction. For those who don't know me, I am Dottie Joseph, and I proudly represent Florida House District 101. And for the Creole parlant amongst us, it's Dottie Joseph. But I am Lottie Dottie because I do like to party. But I sometimes cause trouble, but I don't bother nobody. Anyway, so with that being said, so let me talk about, I'm gonna go a different perspective. So I'm supposed to do an introduction. So I said who I am, born in Haiti, Okap in the house, raised in Miami, public schools all throughout, studied hard, went to Yale undergrad, Georgetown Law. While I was in school, I had the opportunity to intern with Congressman Peter Deutsch, first in his district office and then in Washington, D.C. When I graduated, I had the opportunity to work with President Jimmy Carter, not while he was president, afterwards at the Carter Center, working on democracy development in Latin America, the Caribbean, and West Africa. While at Georgetown, I worked a lot in the voting rights, civil rights, and refugee rights space. So I worked with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Egypt, the Refugee Law Project in Uganda, the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, the National Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under the law, their Voting Rights Project. I had been coming down to Florida, even when I lived away, from 2005 and just about every election thereafter, to volunteer as an election protection attorney, which I did under both Obama administrations. I also served as a surrogate, all kinds of stuff. Came back home to serve, first Black attorney to work at the city of North Miami Beach, deputy assistant and interim city attorney. Went on to litigate class actions all around the United States. Some of them went to the Supreme Court, and I unapologetically kicked butt. I'm a lawyer, so I'll just stop there on that piece. And I got sucked into serving in the Florida legislature, and it's an honor and a privilege. But I'm gonna tell you, it's rough. Okay, you got a flavor of that from Rep Woodson, and en vérité, I'm just gonna speak to my people. Parfois, on se des bagailles, pas gen bouche pour parler, right? Because the level. Anyway, bon quitter ça. Let me go ahead and move on to the next part of your question in terms of session. I'm going to start off with a couple of bills that I proposed that were successful in going into law. Florida is a two-party consent state, which means you can't go ahead and record somebody without their permission, with a few limited exceptions. So I created a bill that allowed for victims to be able to record their abusers who are contacting them in violation of a no contact order. Very straightforward. So if the judge says you're not supposed to contact this person and they contact you, guess what? You can legally record them. Before, that was illegal. So that's a measure to protect, whether it's victims of domestic violence, sexual violence, dating violence, or any other person who the judge said this person shouldn't be contacting you, male, female, you're protected. Because what would happen is they would have this he said, she said foolishness that would go on. And then beyond that, you would sometimes also have a situation where the victims was now being prosecuted by their abuser for recording them for something that was just very basic. So that's one. Second is, along with another colleague of mine, Leader Pro Temp Camilla Brown, we were able to expand the purview of the Office of Minority Health and Equity. And what that really does is it establishes additional requirements so that we can track healthcare disparities. That's going to be my next priority going into this session that's coming up. But my priority coming out of this session that we just left was to really tackle police reform, which was a challenge. So you already heard about HB1, which I like to rename Hate Bill 1, right? The anti-protest bill. Some other provisions before I move on to the rest of the police reform that HB1 did that wasn't mentioned that are just particularly atrocious. It provides immunity for somebody who runs through a crowd of protesters. So if you think back to Charlottesville and the young woman who was killed by a white supremacist terrorist when he ran through the crowd was Heather Heyer. So instead of doing what most people would make sense to do, which is protect the victim, right? We go and protect the person who's attacking the victim, which is just like out of effing control. But that's the Florida that we live in under the current administration, and it like straight up sucks. Like, I don't know how else to say it. It's really like out of control, doesn't make sense. It enhances all kinds of penalties for things that were already illegal. So there was nothing really that needed to be done. There was already things for battery on a law enforcement officer, assault, all of those things. So now we have just a means by which more people can be arrested for exercising their right to peaceably assemble and their right to exercise free speech. Anyway, HB1 is just not good. In addition to the things that were mentioned already, let me think what else. So any change in a local government's budget now can make the governor go and intervene in a local government's budget, because if they decrease anything related to the law enforcement budget. So even if you have cuts across the board, as long as you touch that law enforcement budget, you're in trouble with the governor. It waives sovereign immunity for civil actions where a city supposedly intentionally obstructs or interferes with the ability of law enforcement during a riot or unlawful assembly. So let's say you have an accountable elected official who wants to say, no, this is not cool, you shouldn't be doing this. Well, now they've just tied your hands and waived sovereign immunity. For a translation of what that means, now that local government can be sued for doing literally the right thing. Anyway, I'm going to move on from HB1 because it's just pissing me off even more as we continue talking about it. Anyway, so let me go to police reform. I'll talk about something quasi-positive and then go back to some more of the not so great stuff. Is that okay? All right. So police reform. So in light of HB1, right? So you have the Black Lives Matter protests. Now that didn't originate with George Floyd. That started way before, but that brought a lot of it to the head, right? And we saw global protests of this sentiment that this is just not right. So with that sentiment in the background, Yah's governor decided that he wants to do hate bill 1 instead of, so, you know, us in the Black Caucus and other members of the community realize that this is an opportunity to try to effectuate some real meaningful change. So we do what we do in the background. So in South Florida, I had convened between Dade and Broward, a group of over 50 organizations to put our heads together and come up with some ideas of how to fix the problems that we saw, not just in terms of police brutality, but in terms of structural racism in the criminal justice system in general. So at the local, state, and federal level. So, and that included law enforcement agencies, that included groups like Black Lives Matter, Dream Defenders, you know, lots of and I wanted to center the young people who were driving the movement in our communities, right? I'm a firm believer that policy should be driven not by just the people up top in some ivory tower, but that it's really responsive to the needs of the community. So with that in mind, we had a lot of ideas to the table. I put together a working group of Black attorneys, primarily Black attorneys. We had some non-Black attorneys who pitched in, and I appreciate them too. But it was an effort primarily from the Wilkie D. Ferguson Black Lawyers Association, the Gwyneth Cherry Black Women Lawyers Association, the Haitian Lawyers Association, Caribbean Bar Association, Franklin Cunningham Bar Association, the National Black Prosecutors, and the TJ Reddick Bar Association, which is all of the Black bar associations in South Florida. And we went through these ideas and decided which ones would make the most sense, which ones were workable, which ones weren't, and continued to research. From that body of work, we brought that to the Black Caucus. Now, there's another group that was working too, and that was Tangela Sears in conjunction with the Black Affairs Advisory Board, which I used to serve on in Miami-Dade County, and Uncle Luke, if you could believe that, all put their heads together, had some ideas. And separately, we also had the Democratic Caucus led by a former senator, now representative out of Orlando, who also had some ideas. So all these ideas we had working together. We put it to the members of the Black Caucus first because we thought it was important that the Black legislators led this conversation. And then our allies also picked up some of the legislation. So of the ones that I myself sponsored, all three of them made it into what ultimately became the legislation, the police reform bill that passed in Florida, which is a big deal. Now, is it everything that we wanted? Absolutely not. But it's more than what we thought we would get. So a couple of my things that were included in that particular bill included a duty to intervene. So when an officer observes another officer doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing, they have a duty to intervene. There's also a duty to render medical aid. So if you remember during the George Floyd trial and the testimony of the paramedic who wanted to intervene and render medical assistance, and she was prevented from doing so or felt prevented from doing so, now everybody involved has a duty. This one particularly is for law enforcement officers to render medical aid when it's needed. In addition to that, there's misconduct. There's one about data to track misconduct by law enforcement officers, particularly their interactions with civilians. So all of these bills made it in addition to that, just to talk about that police reform bill a little bit more generally, we also set a minimum age of arrest, which did not exist. Now we wanted it to be higher, like maybe 10 or 11 or 12, but we landed on 7, and that's just part of the sausage making process of where the Speaker of the House was comfortable. And we needed to move forward with something which is better than nothing. Now, there were lots of things with respect to training. There are lots of things with respect to, there's just so much with that bill. So I'm going to stop talking about the bill, that particular bill now, and jump back real quick to SB 90, which is Florida's contribution to the attack on voting rights throughout the United States by Republicans who were basically just sore losers. So instead of making it easier to vote, they're trying to make it harder to vote. And what's particularly frustrating is the narrative that's used to justify this foolishness is that somehow there was fraud in our elections, while at the same time speaking on the other side of their mouth, talking about how awesome our elections were and how Florida was the example of how to do it right. Mind you, the only case of actual fraud we had in Florida dealt with a Republican legislator that has been charged and indicted with criminal charges about fraud and putting another candidate on the ballot in a Senate race, but the bill did not address that, even though we brought that up multiple times. So I'm just going to leave that right there. Ippy, that's it.
Hippie. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that rundown. I think you also hit a lot of the questions that I had. One thing that I did want to ask for the both of you, there has been a spate of gun violence in the areas, I think around both your districts recently, I think specifically in the past 6 days. Knowing the strong grip that the NRA and other gun advocacy groups have on Florida and the state, what can be done to address this violence? And what I know a special session probably isn't something that's going to come to pass in this legislature, but what can be done, just what can be done from legislatively, and what can people in the community do to sort of address these sort of issues?
So legislatively, there was a proposal for a gun violence task force that was not considered. It was not heard as a bill. And it's something that has been brought up over and over again, but the governor has consistently just offered thoughts and prayers, which we see all around the country when it comes to anything with gun violence. And that's particularly disturbing because this is a quote unquote first world country. I say quote unquote because we're sliding really fast when we see what happened with the twice impeached former occupant of the White House to now. Like every other developed country in the world, when they have a really bad gun violence attack, any kind of mass shooting, they put their heads together, they pass some legislation, they pass some common sense gun reform, right? People still have access to guns in different capacities depending on the country. It doesn't take away your Second Amendment rights, but people are protected. Our children are protected. And these people just don't care. Like they don't care. They pretend to say that they're pro-life. Well, do you only care about potential life in the womb, or do you care about actual living and breathing people? And their actions time and time again have showed us that they don't care. And it's not even about they don't care about Black and brown. They particularly don't care about Black and brown, but it's like they don't even care about anybody, Black, white, purple, whatever, because as long as their campaigns are being filled by these gun lobby interests, then that's it, period, end of story. They don't care. Which is the same thing we see with the January 6th insurrection and how they're responding to that or not responding to that. It's really disconcerting to see those efforts. As far as what the community can do, we need to get rid of this concept of snitches get stitches, right? We need to, as a community, stand up and identify some of these people. Some of us know who those people are, right? Yeah. And some people know different things about them. The reward for various ones of these incidents are up. A friend of mine lost their relative, young Haitian American guy, I mean, Quentin Valborn. I mean, and it's not just us, like Hialeah, but all they want to do is offer thoughts and prayers. You know what? You can keep your thoughts and your prayers because certain people will not have their prayers listened to if their hearts aren't right. And if you are actually a Christian, you will understand what that means. So faith without works is dead. If you have any kind of real here, none of
Is she freezing for you as well,
Are
Mary?
we having, I think she froze.
Okay.
All right, so I will
actually
go
turn
ahead
my
and
my fini la just
forget the finiu déjà.
Okay. All right. Thank you,
Actually,
Dodi.
your computer
I think we had
finished
some freezing
freezing.
issues
That's
there.
what it was. Yeah.
But
Sorry.
Representative Woodson, same question for you around the gun violence that's been
Sure, sure. Thank you, David. Representative Joseph actually summed it up. But what I would say, gun violence continue to be a major issue in our community. And it's not that we're seeing progress when it comes to the number of children that we have dying in our streets and the number of families who are being hurt by gun violence. And it's a conversation that has been around for the longest. But like we are not seeing the players taking it as serious as they should when it comes to our leadership actually in the state, because the NRA is so powerful when it comes to putting money in some people's pocket, and then they turn a blind eyes to what's going on. And we have to stand up and say enough is enough. But we do have a lot of community leaders actually in our communities who are working, trying to come with ideas in order to address the issues. But we need to have laws in place that would help in addressing the issues. We have to go to the root causes of the problem actually in order for our children to stop dying. Some kids, it's not even only kids who get in trouble who hang around with the wrong crowd. You could be standing in the front of your doors and get hit by a bullet. And we're seeing so many of those cases over and over. So it's about time that we really start taking this problem as serious as it should be taken in order to have laws in place, but not only laws, to start going to the root causes of the problem where our kids are not being given the same opportunities as every other kids. We're seeing disparities in our communities when it comes to healthcare, education, everything, you name it. You have a lot of our kids who are at a disadvantage. So those issues have to be addressed, and then we could be addressing the gun violence issues that we're seeing in our community. Provide our kids with more opportunities in order for them to succeed instead of dying under, gun violence and so forth and so on. As far as our community is concerned, all of us need to be responsible to make sure we say something if we see something. Yes, sometimes people are afraid for their life, but guess what? By not standing up, by not taking a stand and say something, more kids are dying. More people are losing their life. Our communities are really suffering from gun violence. When you see a mother who loses a child, myself as a mother, you put yourself in that mother's position, or father, or someone, you lose a cousin or brother or a sister. So all of us need to have a stake in this issue. Speak when you see something, connect with other people. And not only that, David, my thing also, we need to get our young people more involved. We need to talk to them. We need to have more forum where they can speak, where they can talk about some of those issues, because you'll be surprised. Some of the best ideas would come from those kids who are in the community, who are dealing with those issues, that we are not talking to them. We're not really asking them certain things that we need to ask them in order to address the root causes of the problem. So it's definitely a problem that is there, that has affected our community for so long. And it's about time that the state, we take it more serious. We look at it as we need to. And it's going to take every single one of us. It's going to take local, state, and federal, all of us together, and the community, and the younger generation, those kids who are dying. Because when you see a kid losing their life, something could have been done to prevent these kids from dying. Even if they come from the environment, we can address some of those problems before they fester into something else. So we need to do better. We need to do a lot more, and it would take all of us. It would take the village in order to address this problem.
Absolutely. Let me see here. Let's go SB 510. So SB 510, which died in appropriations, was a bill that addressed the housing trust fund, specifically around the Sadowski Trust Fund. It would make for it to be one of the 11th trust funds swept when the legislator is looking for funds, but it still allowed in emergencies for the legislator to tap into that fund, which is traditionally what has happened in the past. I guess the question for you all is, do you support this approach? How should the state be managing the Sadowski funds? Do you think the state has been a good steward of the Sadowski Fund Trust Fund to this point? And do you think that you'll be able to work with incoming leadership to advocate your views specifically on how we should be managing that fund?
The answer is no, David. I do not support it. The flat out no. It has gotten so bad. You know, for the past 10 years, they have ransacked the Sadowski Fund. In the meantime, affordable housing continued to be a problem. Now, if we have laws in place to allocate, if laws was in place to allocate a certain amount of money or to allocate funding for a certain program that is so much needed, you are see the homeless population continues to grow, and we were supposed to address the homeless issue by 2020. What do you see happening? More people are in the street. More of our young people cannot afford to rent an apartment. They go to college, they graduate school thinking, okay, I'm going to have a better quality of life. In the meantime, they can afford to pay for an apartment. What do you think happened? They end up staying with mom and dad. They start being depressed. They start going into, all kind of mental issues, and the problem keep on festering. In the meantime, you have the administration that keeps taking money from the Sadowski Fund while this money should be allocated for affordable housing. We have our families who can't afford to pay rent. What do you think happened? They end up being on the street. They end up having all kinds of issues. No, the money should be allocated to whatever program it was earmarked for. I do not support it, and I will never support something like that. I don't know how anybody else's feel. And I know Rep. Joseph would, I'm pretty sure, she's a little firecracker herself. She would not agree for them to keep robbing funds, from the Sadowski Fund. You had the London Charles Foundation that they had, for a long time. This man has done so much. Guess what? They closed it this year, took the money out and closed it. Come on, where are we getting to? There should be laws in place as well for money when it's allocated for funding to stay where it's at. Just like we just passed the gaming bill. One issue that we were fighting with, that we were wrestling for, what is this money going to do? That money that's going to be generated, that 500 million that's supposed to be generated in the next 5 years. What is this money going to do? We couldn't get an answer on that because they want that money to go wherever they want it to go. We don't want the money to go to big tech corporations. So the answer to your question is no, I do not support it, and I will never support it.
Representative Joseph, I don't know if you agree with that, but I would also ask for you, what is the vision for, if you do agree with that, what is the vision for how the state should be managing those Sadowski dollars, those housing dollars?
Sadowski dollars should be used for what the Sadowski dollars were intended for, which is to address affordable housing, right? And, Rep. Woodson talked about rent, but also making home ownership affordable, right? There are programs, whether it's SHIB or a whole bunch of other ones, that have not been able to do anything for anybody for a long time. Just recently in Miami-Dade County, they opened it up for Section 8, which had been closed for ever, right? And that's thanks to the funds that had came down from the federal stimulus package that we got, the American Jobs Plan, right? So American Rescue Plan. So I guess what I'm saying is, it's not complicated. Housing funds should be used for housing. Wow, what a concept. And tell me, maybe tell me that we haven't used the funds. Well, there's not one instance where those funds cannot be used, right? Like there's nobody who's like, oh, we had enough, don't give us any more. There's not one city, not one county who's like, we don't need any more. They all need more. And I talk to people in my district who are trying to figure out how to buy a home with the flooding of people coming down from the north, people coming from, countries that they're fleeing, who sometimes have some big pockets, right? And they're buying things cash and they're pricing people out of the market. And then, if we also factor in the reality of things like Airbnb and how that also has an adverse impact on, the quantity of affordable housing options that exist in a community, all of these things are very real. And there are some things that we can do to tackle it. Another representative and I sponsored some legislation to kind of loosen up the blockage that local governments have from the state level to consider maybe something like rent control, to experiment with different solutions that may be helpful for our different communities, and they're not having any of it. But I will tell you one little mini victory that we got as it relates to affordable housing. They had initially cut it down significantly in the initial budget proposal, and we fussed and fussed and fussed so much. And it's something that's not just, a Democratic issue, it's a Republican, like Republicans are having trouble finding housing too, right? It's not like you get an R behind your name and all of a sudden you get affordable housing. It doesn't work that way, right? The banks aren't looking at that. But we were able to get it higher than what they initially got it to, which was significant. But, did they fully fund it this year? No. Last year they did. And then Ya's governor went and vetoed part of it and then went and tried to backfill it with some other funds. Anyway, I think you get the point. Housing funds should be used for housing. If there wasn't a need, if all of a sudden all of our housing needs were met throughout the state, fine. Okay, you can do something else. Maybe we can have a conversation about it. But that's just not the case. We need more. And that's just like a basic need. Housing has such an impact beyond just where you sleep. It's a direct factor as far as how healthy you can be, right? That's when you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs of what you need a safe place to sleep, right? You need food. You just, enfin.
Et puis, c'est ça net.
Thank you for sharing your visions on that. I think I just do have one more. I think you all hit some of the big bills, SB1, SB90, HB1, SB90. And I know Rep. Woodson talked about the transgender bill. But I think another thing that has come up is SB 7072, which has been sort of a pet cause of the conservative movement about cancellation, cancel culture. SB 7072, which is the social media bill, which allows for if elected officials get thrown off of social media. I know it is sort of a nonsensical thing, legislatively when you talk about COVID and housing and some of the major things that the state should be facing. And I do want to frame it within that context. When you look at some of those major issues that the state is facing, like you talk about housing crisis, like I said, COVID relief that needs to be brought down to the state. What are you thinking when a bill like that is making its way through the process and you know what's going to get through? I would like to know, what are your thoughts and what are you thinking at that point, knowing what real things need to be addressed?
It's frustrating. This was purely political. This was like, oh, we're mad that I don't even know what to call him. Our political Frankenstein can't spew his foolishness on Twitter anymore. And, there were lots of comments about this. And there was one Democrat, interestingly enough, who spoke in favor of it, who I think she's also under investigation for other criminal wrongdoing, not to point finger at anybody. And so I'm not going to name names, but the one carve out was for media companies that also have a theme park. Who do you think that's meant to appease? And why do you think it's meant to appease them? They couldn't be more apparent about the corruption if they tried. But we have to like call it out for what it is. It is. So tell me you really want to address the issue. Tell me you really want to tackle something that's meaningful for people, but that's not the case. And what they have to remember is, if, you know, let me pause for a second. I'm putting on my lawyer hat. They don't even care if it's illegal, right? They're just doing it because they can. And literally that's the answer on the House floor when you're asking questions, because we can. So they don't care about the cost. They don't care that it's illegal. They don't care about any of that. So constitutionally, you have no right of access to a platform. You have a right to a freedom of speech, but not to a private platform. You have freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. And they don't understand that. Or maybe they do and they don't care. I think it might be a little bit of the latter. But they're in a position to be able to do these things, which is, and the way they try to cloak it as something benign is also interesting. But, you know, until we have the numbers, as Rep. Woodson said before, it's going to be a challenge. So I just remind everybody, and I know I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, to the Avancé Ensemble crowd, but elections have consequences, right? We just got TPS, and that would not have happened had the other person been elected who had already stripped us of TPS, right? So I need people to just connect the dots for little things, big things, because they're actively doing stuff all the time that are going to have adverse consequences on not just Black people, not just immigrants, but like Democrats and Republicans alike. SB 90 that, you know, makes it harder for people to vote, that's gonna affect them too. But the sad thing is they're banking on that, because the less people vote, for them, that's a good thing, because they know their hardcore supporters are gonna vote religiously. So we just need to overwhelm that, just like they did in Georgia, just like they did in lots of other places, and make sure that we are also not even just equally, but overwhelming them even more than what they're doing this next election cycle.
Well, thank you.
Let them have it, Rep. Joseph. Let them have it. I do.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Woodson.
No. I was just gonna say, I would just add to that. Who do you think needs to be barred from social media beside our, I don't know how to call him. I don't want to even call his name out. He should be the one to be barred from social media, period. Because when you acting like a child, like a baby, you threatening over and over, why you should be in such a respected office. So you should have been the one to be dealt with, and some other people who are acting like you. Unfortunately, all those bills, David, like we mentioned before, are coming down to hurt us. But guess what? We are smart enough. We should not let that happen. Well, if they go left, let's go right. If they go right, we go left and try to get what we need to get in order not only to get more people elected into office, but to get the right people in office as well. Like Rep. Joseph mentioned, some people could say, okay, I'm a Democrat, but they're not really voting for the values for what we represent as Democrats. So we need not only to get people in office, we need to get the right people in office. And also we need to stick together and do our homework and try to really strategize better, messaging better as well. If it was us who went into the White House when the insurrection happened, guess what? They would never let us forget it. They would use it over and over and over against us. So we need to strategize better. We need to message better, and we need to unite as a party, as a force, and bring those independent in as Democrats as well in order for us to have those numbers. Even some of those Republicans who are tired of the party, let's bring them in as well. Let's not let them deprive us of our rights to vote, of our right to stand for our community. Let's stick together and make it happen and bring the numbers in Tallahassee, at the federal level, at the wherever, at the local level. It's time for us to get up and do what we need to do and take it and move it forward.
And just to highlight what Rep. Woodson is talking about. So she was referring to Russian Agent Orange. That's what I'm going to dub him for right now.
A school bus? I call him a school bus.
School bus. It got to the point of an insurrection. Like, let that sink in. These people went in there armed to attack our Congress, Democrats and Republicans alike, right? They were, what were they saying about the vice president off with his head or some foolishness? I mean, that's when these media folks finally did something. And this is our response to that? Really? Enfin, go ahead, David.
Well, I do want to wrap it up here. I thank you all for giving us your thoughts on session. I do want to just open it up for you all for any closing comments that you want to share with the Some audience. I'll let Rep. Joseph start.
So closing comments is like my refrain. Like when we say my refrain, elections have consequences. And I've said it before, and I'm gonna say it again. We just need to get ready. We are all around the United States. These Republicans have launched this all-out assault on voting rights. And we need to know that and know what's coming and just be ready. It just means we're gonna have to work harder, but we can do it. And this is a history that from our whether we're talking about our home country or our adoptive country, and our home country of Haiti, you know, we know what it means to have to overcome, right? And you look at the instability that's going on now, that's still problematic. Part of it still with foreign interference or lack thereof, you know, depending on how you want to look at that. But there's a lot going on there. So to leave that place to come here in search of something better, in search of this idea and this concept of democracy, and to be confronted with like wannabe totalitarianism and dictatorship and everything that we fled, and to have them use that same narrative, you know, with these Central and South American countries and try to dub it as socialism when they're the ones doing the exact things that these socialist countries did, is just like the level of hypocrisy is beyond extraordinary in a very bad way. So, you know, faut nous mettre femmes sous nous, faut nous mettre garçons sous nous to do what we need to do come this next election cycle, because it's going to be real. And, you know, another thing we talked about with SB 90, the governor is going to have more powers to appoint people who resign to run in lots of places, including this new congressional seat that we have coming up. And we need to be mindful of his playbook, right? Sometimes he'll put in a Republican who then switches parties and then suddenly is a Democrat, and now we think that they're okay. I'm not trying to call anybody out in particular, but you know, we need to open our eyes and see what's going on, because this is not a dress rehearsal. This is not a joke. This is not a game. They are playing to win and will hold nothing back. They don't care about fairness. They don't care about honesty. They don't care about any of that stuff. And then you look at things like the fact that they're in control of redistricting, and most of the states that have redistricting up this cycle that's coming up, you know, nous presque chiré. But we need to do what we can to just counter that, because that's all we can do right now. In the federal level, there's a little bit more that we're still working on. So one thing I would encourage people to do, if you're looking for an action item, is to do what we can to pass the federal legislation that would help us counterbalance a lot of this. Their HB1. So not our HB1 that came out of Florida, but the federal HB1, which, you know, it's now in the Senate's hands, and we see how our senators are. But whatever we can do to push that, that's one thing that can happen now. There are a couple of other avenues through the Supreme Court and a couple of other things that, you know, are at play, but elections have consequences. I start with that, I end with that, and I really mean that. So last thing I will say is, if you have any questions about anything I've talked about, if you're thinking about running for office, I'm actively helping groups recruit and prepare candidates, even if it's not right now. Even if you're not thinking, oh, I want to run this cycle, this is not an instant commitment, but if you want to just start thinking about what you need to do to run, I'm actively looking to build a bench of really good candidates. And I particularly focus on Haitian American candidates. But you could be from any background, any gender, whatever. If you have a heart to serve people, I want to help you. The best way to reach me personally is on my Instagram, which is just Dottie Joseph, period. Like that's just it, Dottie Joseph. If you want to follow me on Twitter, It's Rep Dottie Joseph. If you want to follow me on Facebook, I'm not as active on Facebook. It's just, facebook.com/Dottie Joseph. That's how you can reach me.
Thank you. Rep. Woodson?
Thank you, David. I really enjoyed this conversation with you and my colleague, Rep. Joseph. Tell you the truth, it's been a journey for me, my first year in the state legislature, and I want people to remember two things. We need to remember those numbers, 42 to 78. That's what we have in the state legislature. And there's no way that we can pass legislation that would benefit us as a people. I'm not talking about the other group. I'm talking about us as Democrats, really. So we need to remember those numbers and see the work that is ahead of us, that what we need to do in order to get people elected into office. And we also need to look at the local level. Right now, you have a congressional seat open and we have a lot of people going for the seat. So that means we're going to lose some seats as well in the state legislature. So I want people to remember, if, like Rep. Joseph said, if you want to run for office, please think about it, because we do need more people to run into office. And the second thing, we cannot, I know you're short for time, so I'm going to make it quick. The second thing is, do not let anybody hinder us from occupying a seat or from coming up with good laws that can benefit us. We need to go out and vote. There are a lot of restrictions. There are a lot of limitations in those bills that just passed, and the election bill that just passed. But don't let that hinder us from coming out, going out like the way we did come out in the last elections. If anything, we all have to make a commitment to get 10 to 15 people, not just you, to go out and vote, but find a circle, 15 to 20 people that you are going to encourage and say, please go out and vote, or encourage some other ones as well to go out and vote and put the right people in office in order for us to start breathing. Okay, right now we're not breathing at all. We don't have the numbers. A lot of bills cannot pass to benefit the state of Florida, and we cannot let it keep on happening like that. So my message to you, take it serious. Contact anybody. If you want to talk to me, feel free to contact me on Facebook, on Twitter. I'm on all of them, Instagram. But we are here also to serve you, but we want to hear from you because we are getting ready for the next legislative session in September. So please reach out to us and let us know how you feel or things you would like to see done in the state legislature as well. Even though we don't have the numbers, we keep on fighting, and we did pass 3 bills. Rep. Joseph passed also some bills. So we're still making things happen in the state legislature, even though we don't have the numbers. So thank you so much for having us here tonight.
Oh, and David, I need to, while you unmute yourself, and just shout out to Rep. Woodson, who is the first Haitian American representing us in the Florida legislature out of Broward County. So let's just give her a little shout out.
Well, Joseph, you too much, too humble. Tell you the truth, it's a pleasure for me to serve with her. She's such a fresh breath of air, actually. Believe me, David, don't play with her. She does not play. She's a firecracker in the state legislature. So it's an honor.
I've seen the floor speeches. I know how you both get down. So
she got I'm telling you, don't play with Rep. Joseph up there, okay? But she served her district well, very well.
Appreciate. Well, thank you to you both. Thank you to Avancé Ensemble for hosting this conversation, and we look forward to speaking with you all in the future. Have a good one. Thank
you to Nancy and Sandra as well. Nancy and Sandra, we love them both. Yes. David, we love you as well. Thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, Rep. Joseph.